Welcome back. You're watching Standpoint here on Morning Prime, and we continue apace with the conversation here with our panelist, holding court with John Mbadi, who's the chair of ODM. Also, we have with us Dr. Makali Molo, who is a member of Parliament, Kitui Central. We have also with us Hilary Sigei, who is a Bomet senator, and also Gladys Bostrole, who is a deputy speaker of the National Assembly. And we're looking at and discussing this morning is the recent hiking of proposal from the SRC regarding hiking of the executive and the civil servants' salaries by 14%, and this is what is on the front page. Or this was recently also in the dailies as far as editorial cartoons are concerned. And before we took a short break, we're just weighing in. First of all, the question has been, where is the complementarity between this particular constitutional body and also other ministries like the Treasury? Recently, just last week, we saw also Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndung'u stating that there will be no hiring, there will be no also raising of salaries, and also other expenditure will be pared down from Treasury. And it seems they are not speaking from the same mouth as far as seeing this issue is concerned. So do they have to do their job following the clock, or should they read the pulse of the country? John Mbadi, you'd finished on this. Maybe now we can get Dr. Makali, or you wanted to finish up?
No, maybe just to wind it up. Look, let's not just look, as I said, let's not just look at the senior officials of the government. Look at the teachers. They deserve salary increment. Look at other civil servants, the lower cadre. Let's give them salary increment. But for those who are the top levels, it can be put on hold. In fact, I will tell you, you are talking of 14%. What I saw is way below that. So why would we set ourselves against the public for no reason? Let that wait for that time when there can be salary adjustment for the senior officials of the government, from the executive, from parliament, and even the judiciary. But for the lower cadre of staff, I think they deserve better.
All right. Dr. Makali, you can weigh in briefly then.
Yeah, thank you, Duba. Let me just add my voice to this. And I want to look at it from two different perspectives. The first one is the legal requirement. SRC is a constitutional commission. So they are supposed to enjoy their independence. And actually it's very clear, out of all the commissions, they should not be directed by anybody, either presidency, parliament, or judiciary. They're supposed to be given that free hand to do their work. That being the case, it means that they come up with a program of work. And I'm imagining what the chair was saying is, they do salary reviews every 2 years, and then they will be able to give kind of direction in terms of what needs to be done. So what they have done is they are working as per their program. And they are saying, we have been working on this. If I remember well, there was the issue of the budget. They required about 234 to do job evaluation. They were given about 20 billion, which means they have not even done 20% of what they expect to do. And the reason why they got such a low budget was because of the challenges in terms of budget. So what they are saying is, we have done our work, and then it's time now to implement. And that's why I want to agree with my colleagues. You know, as you implement a proposal, you must also consider the capacity to implement. When you look at what is happening currently in the economy, generally, we would say this is not the right time to do salary increase. But having just passed the finance bill, which seems to be taking away almost everything from most of the low-level income earners, I think I agree with the Honorable Bandi that we need to look at the low-income earners and see how we can actually help them. Because at one point, I remember on this table, we did agree that the disposable income from that level of Kenyans was not there. You know, they didn't have any money. We are taking more from them. So I think we need just to cushion them by adding salaries. But for the higher level, I think we can, for now, I agree with the President, for those who are our level and the CEOs of other bodies could hold on till the economy improves. But that does not mean they have not been affected. Because if you look at what has happened, now the salaries of the so-called high level, we push the income tax from 30 to 35. We've taken away that. We are pushing now the housing levy, instead of being and the ratio of 5K is now open percentage, which means, well, I was supposed to be paying 2.5. Now, this table we are all paying about 17K. You see, so even the high level Kenyans are still suffering, but I think the level of suffering is not the same. So I would say for now, let's take care of the teachers, the policemen, the clerks in the civil service, the secretaries, and then maybe when the economy improves, we go to the higher Kenyans. But as an economist now, I want to say our wage bill is an issue of concern. This country, if we have to grow this economy, and if we are serious about growing this economy, we must address the issue of wage bill in this country. Because if we don't address it, we are going to be paying these salaries with minimum amounts for development budget, and we will not be growing the economy. Right. For us to grow this cake, we must balance our wage bill with what goes to development and all these other budget items.
Right. So I'm surprised that also the legislators, because when they touch on your travel allowance, on your per diems, you had also issues with that, and you've been calling for the scrapping of SRC itself. So
no, you know, Dubali must have realized that the only time members of parliament come up and start fighting the SRC is when they appear to be discriminative. You know, and we have said it many times. Like now, in the Bal, I want to say this: the salaries of the MCRs in this country, the members of county assembly, we like it or not, that salary must be reviewed. Otherwise, that position is going to become irrelevant in this country. Because we are saying, you know, you come from an election, by the time you land through your position, salaries have been reviewed downwards. We don't expect people just to sit and start laughing. SRC has done a good thing. So for me,
the
every time you hear members of parliament taking SRC, always is when now they become discriminative. That instead of talking now about general salaries that we are discussing, you know, now we are talking about general salaries in Kenya. They will just pick on MPs or MCRs, and then the rest of Kenyans are not affected. I think that's discrimination. And nobody would really entertain discrimination. In a situation where they have done what we have done. That's why you see we are that good to Kenya. We are saying, members of parliament, let's reject the salary increase and allow policemen and teachers to get salary increase. That's been fair on a serious note. If we were selfish, we would be saying, give us more. But we are saying for now, can we avoid increased salaries of the high-earning Kenyans and then take care of the low-earning Kenyans?
Right, but even though just looking at maybe the salaries itself, the grading, the SRC has been suggesting they should be having the grading of the legislators as well. If you're not a degree holder, you know, it should not be on the same tier getting as flat rate salary, all of you. They should consider also qualifications as well. That has been put on the table. Could we hear from,
yes,
then we'll come to you.
Let me also put my voice to SRC story. It is true, as everyone else has said, it is the wrong time for SRC to purport to say they are able to review the salary upwards, for that matter, for the members of parliament or other state officers. And I would like to commend the president for rejecting this when he made this address on Friday. Salary review is not only about the basic salary. It's got a whole lot of other things in terms of the condition of work, terms of service, allowances and all that. What we largely get possessed of in this conversation is the basic salary. And it is true that SRC is an independent commission, but it's not independent to the extent that it cannot consult. That is why I've had a number of issues with SRC for quite a while. With the teachers, we have been in court all the way to the Supreme Court with SRC, and we have not in one but several occasions called for their inability to understand the scope of the role of that commission. Their position to say we want to review upwards the salaries as of now, during this time, is not the best thing to come from SRC. And when we say in this table that we do not need that salary increase, it's not because we don't deserve a salary increase. It is because of the condition of the economy of the country. It is because of the condition of other public servants. The team that Honorable Mbadi calls them the people deserving. We have the police, we have the teachers, we have the general law cadre staff of the public service who are actually struggling within the current economic times, which is very challenging, and they do deserve a salary increase. That is why I'm reading in the papers here, 24 county assemblies have closed down Actually, Kakamega MCA suspend. They did this on Thursday, I think, to demand higher salaries.
They began with Vihiga.
That is, yes, that is now getting to 25. What does this tell you? It tells you that even these members of county assemblies are also struggling and demanding that they must be given a salary increase. Whether or not we classify them as the lower cadre is a different story. The review of an officer is not the academics that you've just said, and Deputy Speaker wanted to comment about that. I'll leave out that one. Not that we are saying those who have achieved in terms of academic qualifications higher than others should earn more. Review of salary and compensation for work is entirely dependent on the job description of a person, the roles they do, and also the job group now, the grading system. That grading system is achieved now through the qualifications that one has, but the moment we are all employed in a same office, it means therefore we are actually on the same JD. Therefore, our compensation should be commensurate to the job description that we do. We had a case that we're still struggling right now. It's in Supreme Court, between the clerks of the county assemblies and the SRC, where the clerks are saying, my job description as a clerk of a county assembly is similar to that one of the clerk of the Senate. The difference is, not the Senate, sorry, of the National Assembly, of course, and the Senate. The difference is that this is at the lower level. The discrepancy in terms of the salary pay, therefore, should be that which is reasonable in the circumstances, considering that we are all clerks, quote unquote, under the same law, giving same job description, dealing with almost similar numbers. There are certain county assemblies, like the County Assembly of Nairobi, that has got over 100 MCAs. And the county assembly down there.
That's more than the Senate.
It's more than the Senate. And you can imagine now the clerk of the County Assembly of Nairobi, who, in this case, I learned about this yesterday, the secretary to a clerk in the county assembly is earning over 250,000. And a member of county assembly who is elected has a basic salary of 86. So there's a huge discrepancy. There's a missing gap in terms of the SRC's role in ensuring that the margin, the gap between the higher earning Kenyan and the lowest earning Kenyan. That should be the main thing. But as of now, we're saying, let the members of the National Assembly don't get a salary increase until such a time that the economy is able to accommodate. But let's not leave out the lower cadre Kenyans, let's not leave out the other civil servants. And let's also ensure that SRC in future, as they engage on this one, they must engage all relevant agencies.
Yeah,
so that we are all speaking in one language. We know that Treasury is saying we can pay out this much, we can accommodate this review, and we cannot do this. So that we don't have Treasury talking that we are struggling, and SRC is saying we are proposing a salary increase. That way, it tells you there's a problem with this particular conversation.
Gladys, even as you were on that, just reminded that the Deputy President had said that, even for the MCAs, when they're getting into that office, they knew that this is the salary bracket that they will be actually doled out. So why do you get in and then you want to agitate for, a salary increment? And you running for office, you knew this will be the salary scale for this particular office.
Okay, first let me weigh in on the issue of the degrees. I don't think a degree explains your workload, because what you're being remunerated for is the workload. And I think the qualification for members of parliament or any elected official is not the degree or the education. Your qualification is the election by the people of Kenya. Your qualification is the trust that the people of Kenya have put on you, or the people who elected you. That's your qualification. It's higher than any educational qualification. So it's very narrow-minded to think qualification just comes from education. And then think about it also. According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, as at last year when I checked, only 497,000 Kenyans had degrees. Several maybe are ongoing university students, but the ones with degrees are under 500,000. Are you telling me in a population of 50 million shillings, if we say that for every job the qualification is a degree, then it will, what it is telling us is that that 90-something% of the population will never aspire to leadership. The pilot who flies you does not have a degree. The midwife who delivered you, I'm sure, as a child, did not hold a degree, and you're alive today. So and the fact that you have a degree doesn't make you a better political leader. Mugabe had 7 degrees. Look what he did to Zimbabwe. So the SRC must also look at what is your qualification to enter the job. The qualification is to go to a campaign and to get the trust of your people. Your people are endorsing you. Once you go through that, then the qualifications look different. But if you are now coming to pick hairs and say, in Parliament, we must see, we cannot give Parliament or the National Assembly a certain job group because they don't require degree qualification. I think that is very skewed and doesn't even make logic at all. Yes. So I think it's those are some of the, I think when people are taking on the SRC, it had something to do with that. I know people who are neurosurgeons who are Parliament, but they are not as active. But I find some people who just have the basic education and are extremely good representatives of their people. Yes.
Yeah. Can I just weigh in on that? I think, yes, Parliament at one point even legislated and prescribed the minimum qualification to be a degree for members of Parliament. But this was overturned by the courts, and I think for good reason. That was not constitutional. You are denying a huge population of Kenyans opportunity to participate and offer themselves as candidates in election. If people want to be represented by people in Suba South, if they want a fisherman to represent them in Parliament and they think that that person is the one who can represent them effectively, they still need to deny them that. And again, I want to agree with Honorable Shule that really it is not about, you cannot put people doing the same job and then you start splitting them, that now these ones are more educated, this one, and the job is the same. When we are legislating, we have the same vote. My vote is as good as another vote, whether he's gone to school or not. And we are allowed to contribute to that bill, make amendments. In terms of oversight, again, we sit in the same committees. So how then do you discriminate? That cannot work. But, Dibal, I think at this country, we also need to be fair to elected leaders. And it is not just Kenya alone. By the way, elected leaders have issues across the world, across the globe. But like when you talk, yes, there was a time when Kenyan member of parliaments in Kenya were really paid so highly. But it is not the case anymore, because with the time, the power of that shilling is diminishing. I will tell you that the salary of a member of parliament in 2003, even when I came in 2008, was 856,000 gross. 200,000 was taxable. 656 was not taxable. If you apply tax rate, that comes to about 656,000. Okay? Today, at 696,000. Sorry, 796,000 after tax, if you apply tax on 200,000. That brings you to 796. Today, the salary of a member of parliament, the gross, after tax comes to 756. So it is 40,000 less than what it was 20 years ago. We share a lot with our counterparts elsewhere. They say there was a time they used to envy Kenyan members of parliament because we were earning what was seen as obscene salary. But with the time, that has been normalized. In fact, they're saying now the salary of members of parliament of Kenya has become just like it is in other jurisdictions. But that is not to say that at this moment, members of parliament should get salary adjustment, upwards or downwards. What I think where SRC was getting it wrong was to wait for elected leaders. The last week of campaigns is when they now gazette the new salaries. And a lot of times you find they were reducing salary. In my view, salary for a position the worst you can do is retain it where it is. For a period of time, it will be caught up with time and become normal. Then you can now start adjusting. So, but for MCAs again, I also want to agree that our MCAs are not properly remunerated. That is why you find most of them are in the pockets of governors. Most counties, MCAs are not doing their jobs. They are following governors everywhere, wherever the governors are going. I see for our members of parliament, even if you see Gladys in a function of president, it must be in her region. They don't follow presidents everywhere to get handouts. Senator here will not follow the president everywhere. I will not follow the president everywhere. But our MCAs, it is a matter of survival. If we want to really have counties with proper oversight, and we must enhance some independence of the MCAs. And that, I know people will say that giving more money does not, but it is one way that people would also feel a bit independent. Look at members of parliament when they were paid from the office of the president, Arambe House. They were queuing there. You couldn't say anything. At least at the moment, you can find people even rebelling with the executive. Those who are even members of the ruling party, like Gadoni Wamushoma, like Kalasinga, Majimbo Kalasinga, because they know at a personal level no one would hurt them. So there is some degree of independence. Yeah? And I don't see members of parliament queuing for, okay, there are some with bad habits who would still even follow 10,000. Those are bad. Some people even go for 10,000 shillings. But really, it's not because we cannot sustain ourselves. So MCAs also, we need to look at them. And like that discrepancy, I'm shocked.
I mean,
that you can pay a secretary in county governments more than you pay members of Congress and MCAs. And by the way, the role, let me wind up there. The role of a member of parliament is policy, making policies. The role of a member of parliament is vetting, apart from the president and the deputy. We almost vet every other senior officer in this country. And then you elevate them and put them at a higher level than the same person who can approve or disapprove your assumption of office. I think SRC needs to be taught. You know, when they came in, actually this provision in law, Dubal, and I'm sure my colleagues will remember, it was meant for members of parliament. Because the Kenyans were complaining that members of parliament were increasing their salaries without any reference to anybody. And that was true, because members of parliament were before the end of the term of parliament, there was a salary adjustment taking effect in the next term. That has since, but now when SRC was brought in, was to cut across all cadre of public service. For state officers, they set the salary. For others, they advise. But their focus has always been on elected leaders for a period.
Right. I think we've exhausted that, so we need to move to other matters. And talking about MCAs, there's a very interesting bill that Kakamega County is coming up with, the spousal bill. The spousal bill that is meant to enshrine the office of the wife of the governor and the deputy governor as well. So when you're talking about MCAs and the pieces of legislation that sometimes that are brought to the fore, we question and wonder, what is the rhyme or reason of coming up with such a bill, especially at a time like this? But, well, I'll leave it for you to ponder on that. But I want to come to a very contentious issues that has arisen so far. And I don't know what is happening with the anti-corruption bill. First of all, before we even 3 months lapses, we have seen Honorable Kaluma coming with a new suggestion that he wants to amend Anti-Corruption Economic Crime Act 2003 by deleting Section 64. We had Geoffrey Ruku, Member of Parliament from Mbeere as well, trying also to amend the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, especially regarding the procurement. That should not be a preserve of the ASC to try and investigate, but it should be an administrative issue as well. There's a flash of interest for this particular bill, and I'm wondering why is it being targeted, especially in light when we have Kenya Kwanza administration trying to clamp down on corruption. ODM, Azimio, you've been having that particular feisty move to try and also slay the dragon of corruption. What is happening?
You know, Dibala, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe the legal minds here will help us. But I think if you look at the two amendments being proposed by Kaluma and the Bere North MP, actually what they are doing, they are diluting that act in terms of being very firm on corruption matters. And maybe what they are saying is we have been having this act for many years. Enforcement has been an issue. So why don't we just make it a bit free to be involved in corruption? Because Karuma is saying once you are charged, you can also go back to public office. The other gentleman is saying let's exempt procurement-related issues from the bill. So to me, I think what the general is saying, in a very simple term, is that this act is not helping Kenyans. So let's just make corruption part of our life and we move on. That's my interpretation. But it's all said and done. All said and done. I think we have, on this table, we have all said that even when we're discussing the issue of opening the forest for logging, we did say that one of the major challenges we are facing is corruption. And when you look at all the sectors in this country, corruption is actually all over the place. You go to KEMSA, we are talking about corruption, you go every corner. So to me, I think this is the time now to tighten the law, so that you even make it more stiffer in terms of if you are involved in corruption, what happens. But all said and done, Kaluma is a lawyer, the other gentleman is a lawyer. So maybe the legal minds will tell us what maybe they see from a legal lens which you can't see. And as an economist, that's my simple interpretation.
So a cow is, no matter how sliced it is, still a cow.
I think you've looked at those proposals from a purely layman's perspective.
That's the thing.
I think what you need to look at it is you need to understand the history of implementation of the EACC Act and the challenges that's faced. Actually, the EACC has less than 10% conviction rate. Did you know that?
Yeah, well,
yes, less than 10% conviction rate. Reason being, obviously, a law you can draft, you can pass it through Parliament, but when it comes to implementation, you begin to see the loopholes. That's why there's a permanent Parliament, so that you can come back and you can try and tighten it.
Amen.
So in fact, what they are bringing is tightening the law. I'm not too familiar with Kaluma's amendments, but I'm familiar with the Honorable Ruku's amendment, the Bere North MP. What he's saying is that you find that the Public Procurement and Disposal Act clearly sets out the manner in which you can undertake procurement in government. And everything is set from the technical committee, how it's appointed, how they make their decisions, they're independent of the accounting officer, and so on and so forth. And they have further guidelines from the Public Procurement Oversight Authority. Yeah? So, and they're even given what they call a price market index booklet that tells them for this is the price range and so on. What has happened is sometimes when it's a clear case of a procurement maladministration, that means you didn't follow the Public Procurement and Disposal Act, the EACC has been taking it as corruption. Sometimes it could be incompetence or failure to be a dutiful public servant. That should be dealt with by the Public Procurement Oversight Authority so that you can be disciplined by your employer. You have not been corrupt, but you are careless. But EACC has taken over to become also the Public Procurement Oversight Authority. If you look at the Procurement Act, it says that if you are acting in good faith and followed the
procurement rules,
procurement laws, and something went wrong, you're actually immune from proceedings against you because you are acting in good faith. But right now they have made it such that the Anti-Corruption Act has certain provisions that has criminalized even administrative work or decision making, which means it becomes even difficult for public officers to make a decision. For example, there is this one part which says that one of the crimes is proceeding with a project without a plan. They charge people for that. But the question is, where is the plan? The plan is in the budgeting process and approval by Parliament, isn't it? In all those cases, there is a plan, which means it went to Parliament. Sometimes even it had cabinet, it was a cabinet member and had cabinet approval. Yet, when an officer proceeds on that, they are then told you proceed without a plan. So the EACC just comes up with their own, they just decide there wasn't a plan. So when you ask them, but what is a plan? Because there is no, they've not told us the format of the plan. So it's been left to subject to a lot of abuse. A lot of people who shouldn't really be charged have been charged. Many lives have been ruined. So we can't also fight corruption at the expense of destroying people's lives. We must fight real corruption. And corruption is simply put, it is when you use your position to benefit yourself personally. Yes. Or that you don't declare a conflict of interest and so on. So I think these amendments are just to perfect.
So it should be a purely administrative matter, not being criminalized. As
yes, and then so it should go back to I think, and then the Public Procurement Oversight Authority can become more active.
But
yes,
that has been a question on the public procurement.
There was a case I know about recently where someone has held a title deed for 45 years and questioned, has he been in possession of the property for 45 years? Then someone writes to the EACC an email and says this land was fraudulently obtained. And immediately, EACC rushes to court and gets orders to stay any further development of that property. So the question you ask yourself, it's also a case of some corrupt EACC officials, I think, because how did you go to court on something so flimsy? And yet, the people who can authenticate a title have not complained, which is the Lands Ministry. The Lands Ministry is saying, no, that is the title, and the register in the Lands Office shows. So if that EACC official was diligent, they could have gone to the land register and checked. But they have become a law unto themselves. And that is why they are losing many cases. They are wasting our money by going to court for cases that they can lose. What we want them to do is actually spend more time preparing for cases. And then, because if you're not an effective, if you don't get convictions, people won't take you seriously because they know. So people can use it for political scores, or people can continue being corrupt because they know they will not be caught. In other countries, as a prosecutor, if you don't have at least a minimum of a 90% conviction rate, you will be fired for incompetence. Yes.
All right.
So they are wasting the court's time. We are hiring more judges just to hear cases that are going nowhere.
But if this, the entire process, they've gone through the rigmarole of making sure that there's a plan, what is the role of the Public Procurement Regulatory Authority?
It's been usurped by EACC.
No, because I believe every procurement process, they have to give a thumbs up, isn't it? That they've gone through the tendering process properly. The selection of the suppliers has been to power the pricing. Of course, also it is what in the market rate is. They've gone through the checks and balances that the regulatory should actually be checking. How come we have all these cases running parallel of what the procurement process should be, and we have an authority there? So it seems someone somewhere is not really doing his job. Is it now the regulatory authority itself?
Actually,
because if we question the entire procurement process and we have a regulatory body, this should not be happening in the first place.
True. You know, Debal, Kenyans are litigious. Kenyans are very competitive. There are few opportunities available, and the few, all of them are fighting for. The only reason why we've got so many cases on procurement is because there are so many people who would bid for an assignment that has been advertised, and it's only one who would get it. They will all fight out to seek for an opportunity. The most unfortunate thing is a situation where someone is usurping that role and bringing in now a criminality element to such things which were largely commercial. So it actually answered that it is because we have got few opportunities and very many people are fighting over the few opportunities, such that somebody will just go out of his or her way to look for a loophole to just challenge this process. if I am unable to challenge it at the cradle stage, at the point of qualification, and it's been awarded to someone else, I go to the other agency and say, look, I had this issue, I challenged it, I lost it before the regulatory authority, and I still believe and convicted that there was a process that missed out, and kindly find out why. Now, they usurp that role for obvious reasons. The corruption that is largely there. It could be that this person who is fighting is genuinely fighting because he or she knows I unfairly lost on this tender, and I have this information. Therefore, kindly intervene. That is the only way that the EACC is coming in. And that proposal to amend the law is not in any way to, water down the fight against corruption. From a legal perspective, from a legislative angle, he's doing his job. The member is doing that which is expected of him to do. Amend the law, clean it so that it can now serve the purpose as it is. Same case applies to the proposed amendment by Kaluma. He is seeking to amend the section 64 of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, yes, that says if you are convicted of corruption case, or you charged and you're convicted, you are barred from holding office for a period of 10 years. His proposal is justified by the fact that having been convicted for 10 years, you have indeed served the penalty. You've been punished. The whole objective of punishment is to deter, and also largely to deter, and to make you also pay for the offense that you have committed. So he's saying, you have put me in for 10 years. I have, therefore, been punished for the offense I committed. Why then deny me a lifelong opportunity that would come after the 10 years? So objectively and legally, he's within his right to defend and say, look, this person could have committed an offense. We are all human beings anyway, and therefore we are not clean, as the Bible would say, as white as snow, without blemish. Once we've been punished, then let us live. If we were to objectively look at all those proposed amendments, the honorable members are doing perfectly their job to make sure that they also protect those who, remember, some few months down the line, we were talking about state capture of government agencies, state agencies, where everything was politicized. Dibali, you do the right thing, Honorable Mbadi does the right thing. In his own conviction, he's not committed any offense. But because he's in the wrong political dispensation, he's in the wrong political party, or at that point in time, he's not supporting the government, it becomes a criminal offense. He's charged, he's taken to court, he's convicted, because the entire state agencies either at that point are captured, and everything is political. If you don't sing the tune of those who are in office, you run it out. That way, we is also going to ensure that we protect the vulnerable. If you are not in government and the government is not a law-abiding government, you will suffer. If the law will say you will be barred for 10 years, when it was actually a political witch hunt.
Thank you.
It's a very good proposal.
But don't you think also, if this is a window period of 10 years, and I know that if I'm convicted, I will not be holding any public office for 10 good years, that will give me also the reason maybe to pilfer from government's coffers, get an eye-popping figure into my pocket that will last me for the 10 good years. Then after that, of course, you have a window you can go back because you've paid the price of 10 years. So you'll get good money that will last you 10 years and beyond, because that particular penalty that is there is just a slap in the wrist. Isn't this exacerbating corruption?
The penalty for that, the penalty for that is not just 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison. Remember, EACC also has now the mandate to recover if it is a proceed of crime and you've been convicted, found guilty. That will be taken away from you.
But we've seen how many incidences, going by what Gladys is telling us, especially on the conviction rate, even on getting back some of these proceeds of crime that have been ill-gotten, but it's been very minimal. Let's hear from Mbadi.
Yeah, first of all, I'm a bit disappointed that...
He's a member of your party, yes.
Yeah, that a member of my party has come up with this proposed amendment. I totally disagree with Kaluma on this. You see, we must understand where we've come from as a country. And Chapter 6 of our constitution was not for nothing. It was because Kenyans realized that we were suffering as a result of this vice of corruption. Today we are talking about people not getting salary increment. Why? Because of mistakes committed in the past in terms of looting the public coffers. And it is still going on and continuing. A case where someone has been convicted, the due process has been followed. He has even exhausted, or she has exhausted all the appeal processes and has been found to have fraudulently benefited from public funds. That is someone that you should not allow anywhere. In fact, Kenyans have even been suggesting that these people should be hanged. You know, there is anger. That is extreme. They should not be hanged. Someone who some Kenyans are even proposing should be hanged. You want that person after staying for, the law says 10 years, which I think is even too lenient. Yeah, the 10 years to reform out there. Once you come out of prison, to acclimatize, bring back yourself to the community. Then now you want to remove that and make it that the moment you come out of prison, you can walk back to public office again through appointment or through election. To me, that is irresponsible. We cannot allow something like that. Let this be as deterrent as possible. We should deter thieves. We should tell people, if you steal and you are found to have stolen and you are convicted, that is the end of you with public service. Even if you come out, you will go and do your private things. Whether you go farming, we will not remove you from your farm, or kama unachunga ng'ombe, uchunge ng'ombe zako. But don't come anywhere again close to state coffers or even controlling decisions in this country. I totally disagree with that proposed amendment. Now, coming to the issue of procurement law, yes, there could be amendments that are necessary, but we must also be alive to the fact that there is no corruption in this country without procurement being involved. Actually, there are two areas of corruption: procurement, finance. Yes. Nothing else. In fact, a lot of corruption is put in the procurement process. Do you know the procurement officers can follow the process in this country, laid down to the latter, and there is still corruption? They even give contractors, engineers estimates. They even give suppliers estimate, and then you see we have come up with I don't know whether it is in regulations, that there is up or below that you can go away from the engineer's estimate. That if you put so low below the engineer's estimate, then you are disqualified. So look at such kind of things. So in procurement is an avenue for stealing in this country, and that is why we have that process of review. It would have not been necessary if we had procurement officers who follow the law. There was a time in this country where there was a purge, but again that was politicized as usual in this country. But the way I want to agree with my colleagues is the problem with EACC and DCI has not actually been that they don't know what to do. I don't think they have incompetent officers as such. The problem is politicization. We politicize investigation in this country, where, like what Gladys said, and it is correct, I've seen some funny, I'm not a lawyer, but you find a project is implemented for 1.9 billion. The president has gone and even launched the project. It is complete, done and dusted. Probably there is corruption in it, but you cannot take to court that these people have stolen 1.9 billion. Honestly, the entire amount for the project construction is 1.9 billion.
And the project has taken off.
And it is being used. The president has even gone. And I'm giving a practical case. I will not mention which one. I'm sure many people know about it. But the president has gone there, even praised the management for doing a good job. Yeah, that happened, like President Uhuru Kenyatta. And then you take to court that these officers have stolen 1.9 billion, and some of the reasons you give is there was no procurement plan. Yet this was a government turnkey project. Actually, the president there is a letter from the executive, from the office of the president, that project should be implemented. You are saying there is no procurement plan. There was a process which even went to parliament. You are saying there was no, that the budget, including
cabinet approval,
that the budget is short, that the budget was 1.5 billion. but you have implemented it 1.9 billion. How then could there be a budget without a plan in the first place? Then someone tells you the 400 billion came through supplementary budget. Couldn't investigative authorities find out that the budget was adjusted upward? Because
By Parliament.
Yes, but a capital project cannot be implemented in 1 year. So the year of implementation, there will be 1 billion, for example. The second year, another budget is added. Like that, supplementary budget is brought. So you cannot take the budget at the
Beginning of the project.
beginning of the process. Yes. I am just giving an example that our DCI, our EACC need to remove politics from their operations.
And that's the job of PSC.
Yes.
The PSC, the Public Accounts Committee, can review that process. It's not a corruption issue. They should say when was it approved,
Yes.
when was supplementary given,
Yes.
what were the justifications, because the justifications are normally given during the budget evaluation. Then after the end of the process, it goes to the Public Accounts Committee after the Auditor General. So what the EACC should do, before they say that the amount was increased, they should come and, if they just did a little research, their 5 point of call should be the Public Accounts Committee.
And again, that takes me to what Gladys has just said. And you know she's my speaker, so when she speaks, I keep quiet. You know, I don't know what the obsession with EACC and DCI only with whistleblowing. They only go for whistleblowers. But there are a lot of reports from the Auditor General.
Yes.
A lot of reports from Public Accounts Committee. I actually invited them to Mombasa and we discussed this.
The Ombudsman?
No, the EACC, DCI, the only office that was not represented was DPP's office was represented by some officer, but DCI himself was there and EACC boss. And we talked about this. There are a lot of reports from Public Accounts Committee, both in the National Assembly and the Senate. Make use of these reports. Because these reports are as a result of a vigorous process, starting with the Auditor General, who actually does some continuous audit, they do performance audit, but you see sometimes they are more on whistleblowing. And whistleblowers bring whatever the information, and you will find so many officers eating out of that.
Yeah. Sometimes they're settling scores.
Yes, until some time later, you find some officer who decide to take the matter to court. In a nutshell, let us remove politics from these agencies. They have been given some level of independence. Let them do their work professionally. And then someone who is taken to court will be convicted. We'll have convictions in court. And the moment we get conviction, that person who is convicted, in my view, should never come. If today Mbadi is convicted for stealing public funds, I should not come anywhere close to public funds again.
Thank you.
Let me just ask Mbadi a question so that he answers probably in the next. He made a comment earlier on about...
Can I hear from Honorable Makali before you?
You forget his
I'll
forgot
forget
your
the
question.
question.
Okay,
It's a
quickly.
very simple one. I don't
Then you
want to
can
answer
chime
right
in.
now.
Yes,
you know,
before.
we spoke earlier on about the choice of Wanainji to elect their leaders. And he made reference to, if they want to elect a fisherman to represent them in Bunge, let them be. The flip side of that proposal by Kaluma is speaking on the one hand to that particular decision by the electorate to decide on who to represent them. And I'm not saying that whoever has been convicted should never or should come back to office. I just want us to think and objectively because we'll be taking away that right of that electorate to choose their representative.
Can I just quickly answer that?
Please.
Senator.
Kama ni mwizi ni mwizi wetu.
Yes, that is the thing. Mtu achieve.
Senator, there must also be some bare minimum. That's why we can't elect someone who is below 18 years. So you can't just leave it.
But this guy has been cleared. He has been cleared by the court.
No, the court has not cleared him. He has been convicted.
Now, that is clear.
I'm not talking about
He's gone through the process. So
someone who has been convicted.
Yes.
The court of laws for stealing our money to come again near that same money.
Yeah, this is where we call the Council of Elders. The Council of Elders now to tell us.
No, you know, Dibalo, where I come from, although it comes out when it's said in Kikamba, we say that somebody who is used to doing something
We'll do it.
can never stop doing it. They can only assume, they can pretend not to do it
All habits die
for some
hard.
time. And I think that's what Honorable Mbadi is saying. If you have been convicted and you have stolen 100 million from the Kenya government, and we give you a second chance, you come and pretend year one you are okay, year two you steal again from us. So if you have been convicted, please excuse us. Do other things. Forget about public money. That would be
And public office.
and public office. But I think to me the issue
Yeah,
is
before we even delve deeper, can I just butt in a bit and take a station
sure.
break? It's 8, then we circle back with you.
Okay.
Honorable Makali. Right, we'll take a short break right now. When we circle back, we continue with Makali. And we also broach the issue of the strangers in cabinet as well. And we have, questions that have been raised regarding the articles in the Constitution that have been violated, on who should actually be in that particular cabinet meeting as well. And, of course, the drill right now, that is Okiya Omtatah went to court. And now we have the Finance Act temporarily halted. What does it portend? We'll hear from